Good evening, non-existent viewers. I know the full moon is tomorrow night, but they're playing Halloween at one of the theaters in my area, so I figured tonight will be the right night to review American Werewolf in London. And I did watch Edward Scissorhands last night. I was going to review it after I watched the movie finally for the first time, but it was really late at night and I was like way too exhausted to do so I figured tonight, because as one of the rules of 31 days of horror challenge, as you guys have probably noticed if you watch my first two double reviews I've done this October, like if you miss a day of the 31 days of horror challenge, you gotta watch two movies the next day as a backup. Or in this case, since I didn't review Edward Scissorhands last night, I'm gonna do another double review for Edward Scissorhands and American Werewolf in London. And I gotta say, I know neither of these films are like total horror films. Like I know that Edward Scissorhands is more like fantasy comedy romance than anything else, while like American Werewolf in London is more like horror comedy. But Ice Nine Kills wrote songs for both these movies for a Silver Scream album. The World Is in My Hands for Edward Scissorhands, and Love Bites, with for An American Werewolf in London. So I figured I'm determined to watch like all the movies they wrote songs for that album, because I feel like the Silver Scream albums are like from Ice Nine Kills are to like Halloween, like what Michael Bublé's Christmas album and the Beach Boys Christmas album is for like Christmas time. But anyways, let's get to the reviews. Edward Scissorhands was the first collaboration with director Tim Burton and actor Johnny Depp. I love Tim Burton; he's one of my favorite directors. And I love Johnny Depp. He's one of my favorite actors, and it was really great finally going to the film that really started all with these two, with like Johnny Depp playing Edward. I felt so bad from the start of the movie because he's all alone living in that castle with scissors coming out of his hands, and he's finally welcomed in by a super kind family who just accepts him and loves him for who he is and helps him be like sort of the talk of the neighborhood. And you see throughout the film he progresses from being super shy and reserved and just like unsure about his appearance or his ability to fit in, but all his neighbors just love him right off the bat, except for that one crazy religious lady who's like, oh, he's a spawn of Satan. I gotta say, I felt really bad for him throughout the film, especially near the end of the film when he starts like hurting people, not even intentionally. There's that one Jim character. Jim, it's the bully, the villain archetype that is the bully that just gets under my skin the most. Not the super villain or like the mastermind or the unhinged Joker like villains. It's the bully villain, because they are the ones who are just most true to life. Like, not everyone knows a Voldemort, but everyone knows a Dudley. And yeah, Jim is definitely the Dudley of his movie. He's just this jerky teenager who just like hates Edward for being different, or he's jealous because apparently his girlfriend's giving him more attention than she's giving to Jim. And the film just has plenty of super funny moments as well, and it was just very charming and quirky in just that Tim Burton sense. Just like how American Werewolf in London is also very quirky and charming, but in a much more like, I guess, unfiltered sense. Like even by like early 80s standards, this film pushes this R rating very much, despite the coming off as just like, hey, this is like a campy like movie about werewolves, which it definitely is. But this film's such like unapologetically a product of the 80s, especially with its soundtrack. Like I just felt like, yes, all the different old school songs they used for that movie that like have the word moon in its title, like Moon Dance by Van Morrison. And I love the love story that David, the werewolf, has with his nurse. Their relationship, albeit it blossoms very quickly, but it's very cute and charming in the same process. This film is an hour and 37 minutes. I gotta say, I was like, ugh, like that sucks. Like at the end, I did feel bad for David throughout the film, because at the start of the film he went as his best friend get eaten alive by a werewolf, and the werewolf bites him, so he becomes one himself. But the way the film ends, I feel like it kind of just ended on such a whimper, because the police officers just get their rifles and just like shoot him dead, and you see the nurse just like crying over his dead corpse, and that's about it. Like it just ends way too abruptly for my taste. But throughout the film's runtime though, it is short and sweet and to the point, despite me being a little bummed out as ending. Like I had a great time with American Werewolf in London as well. I thought the film was really funny, especially the scene where he's at the zoo. I'm a little biased because I've interned at 3 zoos within the past 15 months. I've always wanted to like be a zookeeper and work with large animals in a captive setting. I loved the zoo scene where he wakes up from being a werewolf all night and he's in the wolf exhibit at the zoo and he tricks a kid into like stealing his balloons. And I was like, oh, this film is definitely a private 80s, because that scene where he tricks the when he like steals the balloons from the kid and he's naked, that would not fly by 2023 standards. Like, holy cow. And the film is just very creative. Like, I absolutely would like, by 1980s standards, this film had like revolutionary like special effects and makeup effects too, like when he becomes the wolf and like he gets all hairy and stuff like that. And just the way that like when he sees like his dead friend Jack come back to life like in these visions, like throughout his days, like Jack becomes progressively more rotted and corpse like that after like David goes on his whole like werewolf spree. Like he kills 6 people and he meets them like being freshly mutilated. So it's just like, oh, my wife's a widow and my kids are fatherless now because of you. Like, oh, he's no friend of mine. That's just a very like, it's such a unique depiction on like what happens after you die and on the whole werewolf trope, because this film obviously like it is, even though it was in the early 80s, it's not the first werewolf film we've ever seen, like, but it's definitely one of the more unique depictions of werewolves I've ever seen, in the way that like, hey, werewolves get to talk to people they just killed in their wolf form. That's a really interesting concept. But yeah, both films, Edward Scissorhands and An American Werewolf in London, I have to give both of them an 8 out of 9 stars. They are both spectacular films. I'll be damned. I'm now 5 days away from my 25th Halloween. That is crazy to me. That this like Halloween's like finally here basically, and that we only have 2 months of the year left. I got some really exciting plans for this November and December, and I hope you guys do as well. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you guys enjoyed, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, like button, please, and subscribe. Stay beastly.